They warned her humans couldn't endure firestorms, so she packed marshmallows. The Dominion's fiery ordeal was a rite, crafted to crush challengers and test allegiance through surrender. Entire civilizations had collapsed under it. Seas boiled, jungles turned to cinders. Proud empires shrank into embers inside the Dominion's furnace. When humanity rose to resist, the overseer decreed the trial compulsory for any human bold enough to stand as envoy. It was built to shame, to terrify, to display human frailty before the stars. Instead, it became a stage for defiance and wit. Captain Holt wasn't the tallest nor the strongest Earth had sent. Soldier, she mocked red tape and toppled authority with pranks that went too far. When the order arrived, she stepped up. Before anyone else, Dominion engineers locked her into armor designed not to save her but to stretch her suffering, to make the show crueler. Era only smiled, tugged the straps tighter, then winked at the galaxy-wide cameras. "You really should have given me a backpack," she said, raising a satchel stuffed with crackers, chocolate, and marshmallows skewered on sticks. The overseer sneered. Alien voices hissed with discontent. The chamber roared to life. Plasma vents opened. Winds of fire climbed hot enough to melt steel. Waves of flame coiled into serpents of molten. A test that had erased mightier species. Yet she strode into the blaze, humming an earth tune. The crowd braced for shrieks, but what echoed was her voice above the roar. She crouched near a vent, skewered marshmallows extended, toasting them as her armor glowed red. "You've used this as punishment," she shouted. "But back home we call this camping." Across stolen Dominion feeds, humans burst into laughter. Soldiers in trenches replayed the stream mid-siege. Miners on colonies watched with battered projectors. Children clapped as fire and humor turned execution into parody. Overseers whispered. They increased the furnace. Vents flared white heat, liquefying stone beneath her. Era bounded higher, springing from rock to rock, sparks trailing her boots like fireworks. "Bit hot," she cried, blowing on the marshmallow as it burned. "That's how we like it." She chomped it, grin unbroken. The Dominion had always ruled through fear, but humor stripped that weapon instantly. Laughter became rebellion, sharpened into steel. Deep within the Dominion fleet, commanders realized their ritual was collapsing. Human morale didn't wane, it ignited brighter. Other species began to whisper, maybe humans couldn't be bent. Phase 2 launched. Plasma pillars fell like hammers. Arcs of fire cracked the arena. Era danced between them, each dodge paired with playful taunts. Missed. Blows one. That scary flame whip lashed by her head. She ducked, laughing. Perfect for barbecue. From her bag she pulled ration meat, speared it, let the fire roast it as she twirled the stick like a baton. Broadcast captured her biting into sizzling food. Between dodges, chewing loud, flashing a thumbs up while Dominion troops clenched their claws. At the command dais, Overseer Cathun warned, "The trial is sacred. The creature shames us before all." The spectators no longer cared for Dominion fury. Delegates who once knelt murmured, entranced not by the storm but by the human who turned it into theater. Laughed uncertainly. Others leaned forward, eyes glowing with what the Dominion feared most, hope. The storm raged harder. Plasma rivers merged. A cyclone of fire swallowed her. Armor cracked, sparks racing across her visor. Dominion leaders braced for panic. Instead, Era tore off her helmet. Hair whipping in the blaze, face smeared. "Flash!" She roared, not from pain but from thrill. This it. Earth summers are worse. Her shout echoed through every receiver. Dominion warlords felt it. The trial no longer belonged to them. It was stealing it, twisting it into human legend. The trial of fire was no longer the Dominion's. It belonged to humanity. Tale carried through generations, proof that they could endure, fight, and laugh. In the very heart of annihilation, Era kept running, boots striking the molten ground, arms lifted as if daring the fire itself. Every breath seared her chest. Every step threatened collapse. Yet she smiled with a reckless delight that defied all logic. To her, this was more than a trial. It was theater, and she intended to end it with flair. The Dominion spectators leaned closer, each fiery second crackling sharper than the last. What was designed as a broadcast of human ruin had twisted into a spectacle of human defiance. And Era knew it. She leaned into the crowd with every gesture, every grin, every ridiculous choice to snack while the inferno roared around her. The overseers had expected screams. Instead, they received a stage performance, and it cut deeper than any blade. The trial escalated. Vents erupted, spraying molten arcs that hardened into jagged, glowing spires. The ground quaked beneath her as seismic pulses threw her off balance. Era stumbled, dropped her skewer, then groaned loudly as if dinner had been spoiled. "Now look what you've done," she shouted, shaking her fist at the sky. "Perfectly good meat ruined. Do you Dominion tyrants even know what seasoning is?" The audience erupted. A ripple of laughter carried across worlds that had never dared to laugh during Dominion rituals. Overseer Kathun gripped the command rail, claws digging deep, bellowing for more fire, more fury. Engineers protested. The chamber already strained past its limits. "Then break the limits," Kathun thundered. And so they did. The walls melted into rivers of alloy, streams crashing downward like waterfalls of flame. The warped heat shimmered the air into haze. Most species would have collapsed instantly. Era instead reached into her satchel and snapped open a small hand fan. She waved it grandly, cooling herself with a smirk. "Bit warm, isn't it? Reminds me of when my cousin left the oven on All Thanksgiving." Her voice rasped, throat scorched, but she refused to falter. To her, the trial wasn't just endurance. It was rebellion stitched with humor. But beneath the laughter, a deeper war was stirring. Human soldiers across the stars now saw the Dominion as vulnerable. If one woman could turn their most dreaded punishment into comedy, then maybe the fleets circling Earth could be driven back. Hope became a weapon. On hidden colony ships, children mimicked her lines, waving sticks with pretend marshmallows. Resistance fighters painted her silhouette on walls, her skewer raised like a banner. Even alien species began to whisper her name, seeing that the Dominion's invincibility was crumbling in plain sight. Kathun howled. He ordered the broadcast cut. Feeds blinked off, but it was too late. The footage had already fragmented into resistance networks, humans hijacking Dominion relays to spread it faster than sensors could chase. The overseers realized too late. Their trial was no longer theirs. Meanwhile, Era was reaching her limits. Sweat drenched her face, armor split with glowing cracks, and the soles of her boots threatened to fuse to the floor. Still, she bounded across molten stone, tumbling beneath arcs of plasma, her laughter hoarse but alive. "Come on. I thought this was supposed to be hard," she yelled, her grin slashing through the fire. The Dominion unveiled the final sequence. From the ceiling descended a massive spear of plasma, skyscraper thick, aimed to obliterate her completely. Overseers boomed their declaration. This would end her mockery, restore Dominion supremacy. Era tilted her head, chuckled, and said, "You know where I'm from, that just screams overcompensation." The audience broke again. Gasps tangled with laughter, even from alien dignitaries who should have stayed silent. The plasma spear fell. Era sprinted, body screaming, lungs burning, but her rhythm held. Instead of fleeing straight, she angled toward the strike, waited until the last heartbeat, then dove, rolling beneath the crash. The chamber shook violently. Waves of molten fire splashed outward. For a moment the crowd thought her gone. But when the haze cleared, Era stood atop a shattered spire, arms lifted, shouting, "And that, my friends, is how you stick a landing." Her laughter cracked into the roar, and it spread like wildfire. Dominion commanders finally grasped the danger. It wasn't her survival that threatened them. It was her transformation of terror into comedy, of execution into triumph. The sanctity of the trial was broken before billions, every ember of her defiance fueling rebellion. In orbit, Dominion fleets stirred uneasily. Some captains whispered of retreat, fearing morale among the subjugated would collapse. Others demanded an immediate strike against Earth before hope spread further. Yet all felt the same tremor within their empire. The trial had failed to terrify. Era, battered but unbroken, leaned against the spire and raised another skewer from her satchel. "Well," she rasped with a crooked smile, "who's ready for dessert?" Though her body screamed in agony, her laughter burned hotter than the storm. The Dominion's trial of fire was unraveling under its own rage, and Era Holt knew it. What was meant as humanity's execution had become humanity's stage, and the overseers had lost their spectacle. The chamber boiled with heat thick enough to scorch lungs, but the sound that carried across the stars was not fire's roar. It was one woman's laughter refusing to bow. Dominion leaders could no longer deny it. The trial was broken, but Cathan's fury had not dimmed. His pride blazed hotter than the furnace. He roared for the chamber's core to be released, a command forbidden even to Dominion elites. Engineers objected, warning the core's release could tear apart the entire platform above their capital. Cathan's eyes burned with rage. "Then let it burn," he hissed. The chamber floor split open. From below rose a sphere of pure white fire, a caged star bound by plasma coils, a weapon built to erase armies. Not a single human. The crowd gasped. Some fled in terror, others froze in awe. Era's armor split along its seams, her body blazing under the heat, yet she refused to fall. The inferno rattled her. Bones, ash coated her tongue, but her grin remained. She lifted her arms toward the fear. At last, a fight that matters. The crowd roared, torn between awe and terror. Her voice quaked, but she forced the words through smoke. "Humans are heirs. Flame. We cook upon it. We brighten our homes with it. We hurl rockets through it. We laugh beside it in song. You think this will break us? No, Dominion. It reminds us of what we are." The Dominion's great weapon trembled, plasma chains writhing like serpents. Cathan snarled, slamming his claw upon the control dais, ordering the star to crush inward and obliterate all. The core shrieked, light splintering into blinding shards. Era moved first. She hurled herself at it, every nerve shrieking, armor burning away, hair lashing like fire. She drove her skewer, a mere steel rod, into the coils anchoring the raging core. Engineers howled as her crude weapon shredded the containment. Sparks rained, plasma writhed, the core tumbled, did not explode as designed. Instead, its power lashed outward wildly, racing along conduits, crashing into the station walls. Lights across the capital faltered. Warships in orbit screamed as systems failed, fleets thrown into ruin. Era collapsed to her knees, skin seared by the heat. Yet she raised her face to the cameras, still casting her defiance across the stars. "This trial is finished. So is the Dominion." Those words struck harder than any blast. Across colonies the enslaved rose. Human fleets hidden in shadows surged forth, smashing crippled Dominion vessels. Alien worlds, long silenced rebellions, erupted, banners unfurled, weapons lifted. The Dominion trembled, not from one human but because she gave billions the courage to fight. Cathan bellowed for her death, but his order dissolved as his own guards fled. fear choking their eyes. The illusion of dominion might have fallen in a single broadcast. In the chamber, the core finally collapsed, ripping apart the trial arena. Flames burst skyward in a column of ruin, shattering walls, devouring steel. Era knew she would not escape, but she rose. Once more raised her scorched skewer and cried into the blaze. For Earth, fall. Who will not kneel? The implosion ripped the station apart, scattering wreckage across the void. Dominion fleets crumbled, commands shattered. Overseers fled in terror. Human forces struck with precision, splitting the Dominion's spine. Within days their empire fell, the trial of fire, remembered not as fear's weapon but as the spark of freedom. On Earth, children lifted marshmallows toward the stars in her honor. Cross alien worlds, statues of a laughing woman, with skewer raised, became symbols of hope. The Dominion was ended, not by their flame, but by hers. And though Captain Aller Holt's body was lost to fire, her laughter lived on in every campfire, every uprising, every corner of the galaxy where someone refused to bow. The trial of fire was meant to destroy humanity. Instead, it became the story that saved them.